else in attendance for being here today and talking about such an important issue in our city. I bike about 14 blocks to and from work each day, and if I wore a camera to film my daily commute, you'd see the constant stream of obstacles along my route. I bike along 3rd Avenue, a couple blocks away from here, where I see cars making U-turns, cars parked in bus stops to pick up their morning coffee, and delivery trucks making life dangerous for both drivers and cyclists, all of which is to say can lead to a stressful start of the day. I do not consider myself a hard and true cyclist. I am simply trying to commute to and from work like everyone else. There are many times I feel as if the single drivers in cars believe they have more ownership over the road than I do, yet I'm simply commuting just like them. And I'm actually making less of an environmental impact. My route home is a little less stressful as I head down 4th Avenue, which has 2 lanes in both directions, giving cars and cyclists more room. That's why it was so exciting to hear that Bay Ridge would be receiving a 2-way protected bike lane on 7th Avenue. It gives cyclists like myself and many of my students who ride bikes to school the assurance we have our own designated space on the road. I know the mayor and his administration have made some great strides with Vision Zero on making New York City safer for all individuals, and I applaud him for that. However, I can personally attest to the fact that over the last few years, more and more people are riding bikes, which is a great thing. But it presents dangers with how everyone is going to share the road. Cyclists, like myself, need more protected bike lanes, safer intersections, and an understanding that all New Yorkers need to be better about sharing the road. I'm thrilled to hear the city will be focusing on creating a citywide protected bike lane network. We have a chance to make New York City one of the best cities in the world to ride a bike, so we shouldn't miss our opportunity. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone again for being here today and allowing me to say a few words. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Thank you. Stephanie, thank you. I think you gave everyone here sort of a real world view of both what's working and what we need to do better and the challenges we face every day. I want to thank you for your voice, but I also want to thank you for all you do for our children and have been doing for so many years to bring up our kids the right way and teach them well. Let's thank Stephanie for all she does. We're here at a very, very difficult moment. This has been extraordinarily painful few weeks. And we have to first think about this in terms of the people we've lost and the families that are left behind in agony and the pain they're going through. And the fact that this all happened in such a small amount of time, and it's a crisis, it's an emergency. And we can never look at such a moment like this and think we can do things the same way. We have to feel what all those families are going through right now. And we have to go farther. And we've got to see this end. It cannot go on like this. These last weeks have been something that should never be repeated in this city. And today we take another step to try once and for all to prevent it. Because that's the whole idea of Vision Zero. Vision Zero never started with the idea we would just save a few lives. Vision Zero is all about saving every life. And everyone understands how difficult that is, but it is the right goal. And we have to put everything we have into it. But we cannot let these good people die in vain. So let's start with a moment of silence for all the cyclists that we have lost in these weeks. Thank you. The folks who are here today believe that it's our mission to go farther all the time. I want to thank the members of my administration and you'll hear from some of them, but others I want to acknowledge, who took the concept of Vision Zero, brought to life, and they understand that their job is to go farther than we've ever gone before. But I want to thank them for years of such a focused effort to do things differently, and for all the lives that have been saved. I want to thank our Deputy Mayor for Operations, Laura Anglin, and of course the Chief of Transportation for the NYPD, Tom Chan, who've both been deeply involved in this effort. I want to thank the elected officials who have been supporting it, funding it, believing in it, pushing the notion of going farther and farther with Vision Zero. With us today, Assemblymember Joanne Simon, Councilmember Steve Levin. Thank you both. Let's give them a round of applause for their advocacy. And I especially want to thank the advocates, the activists who have fought so hard, and I want to particularly note their struggles in Albany, which sometimes were as frustrating as they could be, but many other times led to great victories, most especially recently when we got the ability to put speed cameras in front of hundreds and hundreds of schools in a way we've never imagined previously before, and that's going to change the situation deeply. That's going to save a number of lives. So I'm going to name all the organizations that I have here on this list. I hope I get them all, but I'd like you to applaud them all as we go through them. First and foremost, Families for Safe Streets. Thank you for all you do. Bike New York. Streets Pack. Get Women Cycling. Transportation Alternatives. And right here from this community, Brakes. Let's thank Brakes for all they do. So I'm emphasizing that this crisis we're going through is absolutely unacceptable, and it has to end. And the steps we're taking today are meant to end this crisis now. And we will keep doing all that we have to do to turn things around. You will see continued increased enforcement by the NYPD. You will see more public education. And both those things are meant to change the behavior of motorists, which we have to do. There's still so much work to be done. I know we have changed motorist behavior in some ways, but we have so much more to do. Education is part of it, but enforcement is another way of educating, and you will see plenty of enforcement. And we will be reshaping our streets, including, as you heard, right here in Bay Ridge. Protected bike lanes will mean a lot in this neighborhood. This school, PS 170, has almost 1,000 students. So for the parents of those kids, for those kids themselves, knowing that they'll be able to get around their own neighborhood more safely makes a huge difference. We're going to do this all over the city. We want every bicyclist to feel safe. We want them to know there is a safe route. We want them to think about what's the best bike path to take, not to worry about their safety so often. Vision Zero is what it is meant to be, an endless effort until we get to the day that no one else dies. We've had moments of great triumph and we've had setbacks. But we know one thing for sure. Each year we've gotten safer, and last year was the safest in 100 years in this city. So we believe in the direction, but we have to earn it every single day. Do more and more. This year has been so shocking. 17 cyclists have died already. We lost 10 cyclists all of last year. That's 17, 2 just this week, a third critically injured. It cannot go on like this. So we're going to do everything we know how to do to break through. You'll hear from Commissioner Trottenberg in just a moment on some of the details, but I want to give you the big picture. For the first time, we're committing this city to a truly citywide protected bike lane network. 80 more miles by 2021. which will bring the total under this administration to 160 miles of protected bike lanes. That will make a huge difference for the bicyclists of the city. And the NYPD enforcement will continue to grow. We will now target the 100 most dangerous locations in this city, and all of them will receive additional NYPD enforcement with a special focus on trucks. And I want everyone who drives a truck in this city to know the NYPD will be watching, and they will take action if any trucker does the wrong thing and endangers a bicyclist. Just in the first 3 weeks of this month, under the new instructions, the NYPD issued more than 8,600 tickets for blocking bike lanes, double the same period from last year, and we have just begun. I am emphasizing this is an open-ended effort. It will continue until we see the results that we need. We will work very closely with the City Council, and I want to thank the Council. I want to thank Speaker Johnson, who's been a leader on this issue. The Council has been very focused on the safety of bicyclists and very supportive of Vision Zero. We want to work with the Council to go farther. I commend the Council for the legislation they just passed to make intersections safer and to protect bike lanes during construction. We will be working with the Council on an even broader and higher impact comprehensive citywide plan for safety and mobility. That will be coming up soon. So before I say a few words in Spanish, just by way of conclusion, even at this painful moment, there's something to appreciate, which is that so many more New Yorkers are choosing to cycle. They're choosing to use bicycles to get to work, for their exercise, for their enjoyment. More and more New Yorkers believe this is the right way for them, and it helps this earth, it helps this city, it helps our quality of life. Now, 1 in 4 adults are riding a bike in this city. And biking to work is growing twice as fast here as in any other major American city. That's a very good thing. City Bike will triple its fleet by 2023. That's a very good thing. But safety has to come first. And it's our sacred responsibility to make sure that as all these people choose this good option, that we ensure it is safe. And that is for the cyclists, but that is for everyone who uses our streets, who crosses our streets, who walks on our sidewalks. Vision Zero is for everyone. It is meant to create a safer city for all. And we will work tirelessly until Vision Zero becomes fully a reality. A few words in Spanish. Gracias a Visión Cero, el año pasado fue el más seguro en un siglo. Pero no aceptamos la crisis de las muertes de ciclistas. Estamos comprometidos a rediseñar nuestras calles y aumentar nuestros esfuerzos hasta que Nueva York sea la ciudad más segura para los ciclistas. So we're going to redouble our efforts, and in doing so, going to depend on the good men and women of the Department of Transportation. A lot of times, their work doesn't get some of the attention that some of our other public servants get. They all deserve great credit, but the folks at DOT often labor in obscurity. I like every chance I get to shout them out and thank them for what they do to make us safe, to make our roads better to drive on and ride on. All they do to make this a better city. A lot of good men and women working every day for us. And my pleasure now to introduce their leader, the Commissioner of DOT, Polly Trottenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And you ended on a good note, which is, of course, biking is one of the great ways to get around the city. Biking is growing, and it's something we do want to encourage here. It is an efficient and affordable and a healthy and environmentally friendly way to travel. But as you noted, Mr. Mayor, we have had too many cycle trips end in tragedy, especially in this year, with the sharp increase in fatalities, which, tragically have run contrary to the progress that we had made in Vision Zero over the past 5 years. And as you said, we always knew progress wouldn't always be linear with Vision Zero. We would have setbacks, and clearly we're having a very difficult year, and I know I can tell you everyone at DOT, we join with you in grieving for all of those that have lost their lives on our streets. We feel it keenly. But we also know, and Mr. Mayor, you've summoned us to this, that this is a time when we need to bring some new vision, some new energy, and some new resources to tackle the challenges. And I'm grateful to you and to the Speaker and to our Council Chair and to the other elected officials and advocates and other partners who are joining us here today for that. And as you mentioned, we put the plan together, and I guess I should hold up the plan, Green Wave. I do want to thank all the advocates who are here today and the Vision Zero Task Force, our interagency group. We got great input from all of them on the plan we're putting in front of you today, as well, of course, as our partners and leaders on the City Council. You know, the plan we're presenting today, it's robust and ambitious, a plan for improving safety and the riding experience for cyclists in the long term, and we'll talk about that, but also a slate of more immediate improvements. First of all, one thing we have always heard loud and clear from the advocates, and those of us who cycle know this well, the best way of making cycling safe is more protected bike lanes. So we're announcing today DOT is increasing the number of protected bike lanes we aim for each year. It had previously been 10. We had been trying to get closer to 20 each year, but we're going to get to 30 each year. And for us, that means a dramatic increase in both personnel and resources, and I want to thank the mayor and our deputy mayor here for helping us with that. That's going to mean $58 million in new resources, and the number of folks at DOT who work on bikes is going to grow by about 75%. We're going to hire 80 new people. And those resources are going to be tremendous. And I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had our ups and downs with Vision Zero, but you have always been constant in your leadership and in the resources that you have provided for us. Even today, particularly as the city budget is constrained, we're grateful for the new resources. So today I'm also excited to unveil, and you can see it over there, something that is brand new. For the first time, a fully connected, protected bike lane network that's going to touch all the key destinations throughout the city, and we're committing to getting that built out by 2030. And I particularly want to thank, we have our Transportation Chair Rodriguez here and City Council Speaker Corey Johnson, who both really pushed us, I think, to be ambitious and work toward this, this remarkable goal. Second area is something else you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, better intersection designs. Tragically, one thing we've seen in general with cycling fatalities, we're seeing it this year, majority of them happen at intersections, obviously where traffic and cyclists are mixing. We're committing this year to get to 50 of the most high crash intersections for traffic calming work. We're going to be working to do better intersection redesigns everywhere that we resurfacing streets. We're going to be starting a pilot to implement what's called the Green Wave. Some of our advocates are probably familiar with it, which means timing lights so that cyclists can have a smooth ride with less stopping, less having to stop at intersections, and it will also have the effect of calming traffic. We're going to start that pilot this year and hopefully roll it out to other corridors around the city where we see a lot of cycling. We're going to be using more green paint. We're going to be doing more what's called bike boxes so cyclists can be in front of vehicles and intersections be more visible. We're doing other things to make sure that you can see cycle routes through the intersections. We're also going to be hardening more of our bike lanes with more bollards and other devices to keep cars out of them. As the mayor noted, we're obviously also going to be working with our partners at NYPD. They too have a complementary multi-pronged plan to really get at the most dangerous behaviors on our roadways, including dramatic stepped-up enforcement at 100 of the top locations in the city where we see cyclists are at risk. They're also going to be expanding their truck enforcement and I think strengthening their efforts when we see collisions where there's serious injuries to beef up those investigations. And I think a lot of you know NYPD announced earlier this month that it's discontinuing the practice of ticketing cyclists following a fatal crash. I know that that's something that's been very welcome in the cycling community. One thing we have seen with the fatalities this year, historically, cycling fatalities, about 30% of them involve trucks. This year, it's over 40%. So we're going to be very focused on truck safety and truck education. As I say, PD is going to be doing stepped-up truck enforcement efforts. We're going to be working very carefully with the trucking industry, with fleet operators, to make sure that they have the safety information they need, the training information, and particularly training on awareness of cyclists and pedestrians. As the mayor mentioned, we've been working with the City Council on a number of legislative efforts. The council has just passed 2 terrific bills. We're going to be working with them and our partners up at the state to look at further legislative initiatives, like requiring a 3-foot passing rule for cyclists, increased requirements for truck side guards. And another issue we've heard from the cycling community is the desire to have more secure bike parking. It's one of the ways that can help increase cycling numbers. So DOT is going to be doing a RFEI, a request for expressions of interest, to reach out to the private sector and see if we can do some public-private partnerships to create more high-capacity, secure bike parking around the city. Finally, we're going to deepen our own education efforts. We've started, some of you may have already seen, our Safe to Media campaign, Get There, which is focusing on bike safety. We're going to be boosting our bike helmet giveaway. We're going to be adding 10,000 helmets a year to the 25,000 that we already do, and working with our council partners to up that number even more. And we're going to be working with City Bike. We have our City Bike partners here to give helmets to all NYCHA residents who are City Bike members. I want to just close by saying, under your leadership, Mr. Mayor, I think we've created a plan that is ambitious and realistic. It has the resources and the personnel and meets the urgency of this tragic moment. As we know, it will require a strong collaboration with our sister agencies, elected officials, local businesses and institutions, neighborhood residents, advocates, and other stakeholders. I can say we at DOT look forward to working with you all on this plan in the months and years ahead. And I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, also for singling out the men and women of DOT. They work so hard to make our streets safer, particularly for today's announcements, such hard work by our bike and safety education teams. Their dedication, their creativity, their passion and grit are really second to none. And this has not been an easy year for any of us. We've all been grieving at the rise in fatalities, but I want to thank them. I know their work has made this city safer, and I know they're very excited to get to work on this plan.
In the same vein of being thankful for folks who do such hard work, the folks who put together this plan, again, we asked them to go farther than we've ever gone before and to do it fast and to make sure it was as ambitious as possible and something we could get to work on immediately. So just I want to ask a round of applause for everyone who was part of putting together this plan. Thank them. With that, just tremendous support, encouragement, advocacy, pushing us to go farther, helping us go farther, supporting Vision Zero, helping to get the resources every time there's been a need. Chair Ydanis Rodriguez has been there, and he's been a true leader in the effort to make this a safer city for all. So my pleasure to introduce Chairman of the Transportation Committee, Ydanis Rodriguez.
As the mayor and the commissioner say, it's a sad day for all New Yorkers to know that, you know, it's a matter of days when the new cyclist is losing their life. And all we can do is to put all the resources in place, as you heard today from the mayor and the commissioner. And we need to plan for the future. I believe that New York City had that opportunity, and the mayor, as he's going nationwide, he can go to any city saying that New York City is working to be the most walkable and cyclist-friendly in the whole nation. That should be our goal. And I feel that when we look at the numbers and increase of cyclists in the city of New York, there's no doubt that the number today compared to 2006 speaks by itself. More New Yorkers are relying on a bike to go to work, to go to school. However, it is our responsibility now to be sure that our streets are safe. So I'm here to say, yes, we are heading in the right direction. Yes, to increase the number of miles protected bike lane is the right thing to do. And I know that sometimes it's not easy, because sometimes it's not only about the resources, sometimes it's also about the community board, sometimes it's about some voices that they don't support protected bike lane. So today is a day where we can say having the new goal of going for 30 protected miles every year is the right thing to do. Hopefully, of course, as you know, I do believe that we should be aiming to have 100 protected every year, but I know it's a challenge. I know that that should be our goal. I know that there's not a contradiction with the 30 that the DOT will be working today, as we also will be aiming to expand the number to whatever the resources and also the determination that we make. What I have seen is that having City Bike, not yet the institution that, as it was originally intended, was thinking about providing bike services for those people who live in the lower part of Manhattan. Now, in the last few years, we have seen with the new negotiation for the new franchise, now Lyft being in charge, there's an ambition plan to expand City Bike, to make City Bike and bike share accessible not only to the wealthy and to the middle class, to also to the working class. So the number of cyclists will continue growing week after week. And as the growing happens, it is our responsibility again to continue passing legislation, to continue building protected bike lanes so that cyclists will be safe. Again, our goal should be to make the city of New York the most friendly pedestrian and cyclist in the whole nation. Hoy nosotros le damos las gracias al alcalde y a la comisionada porque hoy estamos trabajando con este anuncio para hacer de la ciudad de Nueva York la ciudad que sea más segura para los peatones y los ciclistas. El anuncio de hoy es muy importante, pero vamos a seguir trabajando juntos para todavía aumentar en el futuro la cantidad de millas de bicicleta protegida que tengamos en esta ciudad. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions on today's announcement first, and then we'll go to other topics. On today's announcement, down the row there.
So, Mr. Mayor, good afternoon. Wondering how many parking spots you estimate will be lost due to changes?
I don't know if I can give you a specific answer to that, but I'm going to say in the thousands.
Okay, like between 1 and 10.
I don't usually get applause for that. Well, I'll see. We've spent a fair amount of time sort of gaming out the rough numbers for this network. We haven't mapped out exactly where a route would be because there's some interaction. I'll see if maybe we can give you something that's a little more refined estimate.
Yes.
How is your approach going to change beyond adding more people to DOT? How is your approach going to change when it comes to pushing these through in a very aggressive time frame?
We're setting a very aggressive time frame, and in the whole history of Vision Zero, I think the very idea has forced action. We've moved Vision Zero projects in lots of places where people told us it was going to be politically impossible. We moved to the 25-mile-an-hour default speed limit. We got the speed cameras done around the schools at a number never before imagined. I think the whole nature of Vision Zero is to be audacious. And this is an audacious plan, but I've made very clear I expect it to happen quickly and aggressively. So I believe it will.
Community boards who might try and block some of the
Community boards' voices should always be heard because what I think sometimes a community board offers is a perspective on how to do it better. And sometimes, I respect everyone at DOT, but they're working from their professional perspective. Sometimes folks on the ground are able to say, hey, there's a hidden problem here you're not seeing, or there's an unintended consequence. We can fix that, or we have a better alternative. So we have to listen to those voices. But, you know, inaction is not acceptable. That's the standard I've held. If a community board offers a critique or an alternative that's a better way to do things, great. If they simply want no change and we believe no change means less safety, I just give the order. Yeah.
Do you think that you're coming at this from the perspective of a car passenger? I mean, most of your time moving around the city is in the backseat of a car or the front seat. Do you think that that at all informs how you're looking?
No, I spent many, many years, first of all, didn't own a car till 1999, I walked, I used the subway, sometimes I biked, and then once I owned a car, I was a driver, not a passenger. So this is a very brief period of my life, so no, I don't.
And then just a quick follow-up. When was the last time you rode a bike? I know that you and...
I rode the bike with Polly on the boardwalk. Fabulous experience. But I am trying to think if there's been a time since then. I'm not sure. Prospect Park, there you go.
This might be a question for the commissioner. Do you know, you're talking about this, all these new protected lane miles, do you know how many of them are going to be parking protected and how many you're going to be either using paint or bollards to protect them? A lot of people are concerned that the bollards there don't really do enough to keep cars from double parked or wall parking.
Yeah, I mean, we've committed in this report to as many hardened, protected lane miles as we can, and even going back and looking at some of our existing lane miles and seeing how we can harden them. One thing we do, one of the challenges we face in that is working both with sanitation and FDNY to make sure that they can get in and plow and clean, and that their vehicles sometimes, that there's an issue of turning radiuses. But both agencies have been terrific and committed to work closely with us on that, on the goal of hardening more of those protected miles even further.
Language means like the hardening that's parking protected?
Yeah. Yep.
Mayor, how does...
No, here, I'm sorry. I'm going, Robert, I'm coming to you.
So one is for the commissioner, going back to the parking protected aspect. I know on like the Upper East Side on First Ave or Second Avenue, PSNY told me, or you guys said that you meant to put parking protected because the street width wasn't large enough for PSNY sanitation trucks. So are you working with other agencies like sanitation to get different trucks so that you don't have to run into that issue?
We are in, and I have to say sanitation's been terrific. Commissioner Garcia's been terrific looking at, and they already have some sweeping and plowing equipment that are smaller vehicles that can go into narrow lanes. DOT, we have some of that equipment as well, and actually Commissioner Garcia and I were just talking about how we might include some more of that equipment in the cost of doing these projects, because it is another element we need.
So this doesn't really mention anything about like reducing the number of cars. I mean, there's also a huge number and increase in pedestrian deaths, not just cyclists. So, and that are caused by like private car owners and trucks. So is there anything that you're doing also to reduce the number of cars on the road?
The whole, I think, importance of what was done in April to finally fully fund the MTA is that it will help us to reduce the number of cars in our city. The fundamental challenge is we have more and more people, more and more jobs, more and more tourists, but we didn't have a mass transit system that was keeping up. Now that there's going to be funding for the MTA, I think you're going to see better subway service. We know you're going to see better bus service because we're investing in select bus service and a whole host of other things to speed buses along their way. I think the best thing to do to encourage people to get out of cars is to create better mass transit. We're certainly doing that with NYC Ferry, City Bike, a host of things. So to me, that's going to be the difference maker, and I think we are now in a position to act on that. Yeah.
Mayor, is there an acknowledgement in today's announcement that a similar initiative in 2017 either didn't work or didn't go far enough? After all, that announcement, I believe in July of 2017, also focused on 10 priority bike zones.
Now, obviously, what we did in 2017 led to a better 2018, and 2018 was the safest year we've ever had, or we've had in 100 years. So we're all pained and we're all shocked to see this sudden turn, and that's why we're taking it seriously and throwing more at it. Yeah.
Mayor, it's difficult to ask this because I think all of us feel badly for the families of these 17 people that we've lost this year, but at least in my neighborhood, which, and I'm lucky that I live close to Central Park, Hell's Kitchen, it's out of control. I mean, the bikers, they go the wrong way, they're on the sidewalk, they run the red lights. I've been taken out almost several times, not by cars, but by cyclists, either speeding or going the wrong way. And it doesn't seem like anything in this plan addresses that, which is a free-for-all in my neighborhood.
Look, one, we are all in this together, and I mean it. We're all going to have to deal with an ever-changing circumstance in this city. So this is the piece that deals with the most dangerous part of the equation, which is motor vehicles. Let's just be clear from the beginning. I'm not missing your question. I'm saying let's start at the beginning. The danger comes from cars and trucks. And we had shown that with more speed cameras, lower speed limit, redesigning intersections, all these things, more enforcement, was clearly driving down the fatalities consistently. And that was oriented at the cars and trucks. This recent set of tragedies shows us we have to go a lot farther to protect people, but also to have more enforcement on the cars and trucks. At the same time, we've got to educate everyone to deal with an ever more crowded city. Everyone is part of this. Everyone has to act in the name of safety. And remember, the ultimate vulnerable folks are pedestrians. So yeah, we also have to educate everyone to be careful to respect pedestrians. That work will continue as well. But I think this is the most essential piece of the equation. Marcia.
Mayor, you've asked the NYPD to crack down on drivers, but what about these bicycle riders who behave badly? Don't you think that they should be ticketed, they should be held accountable for the things that they do as well?
So the point you heard earlier, I think it was a mistake, even though I think it was intended to be part of addressing safety. It was a mistake for the NYPD to be giving tickets to cyclists right after a tragedy. But we've also said very consistently, of course we're going to do enforcement on everyone. We have to, in the name of safety, we'll continue to. There is no comparison between the impact that cars and trucks make versus the impact that cyclists make. But the instruction is to do enforcement across the board to keep everyone safe.
This isn't about, the issue of giving tickets right after there's been a tragedy.
But I wanted to clarify that, Marcia, because I think a lot of people have been very concerned about that.
I think that what Dave said and what I've experienced and what our cameras have caught is that you see cyclists going through red lights, going the wrong way on a one-way street, crossing through traffic where they make it difficult for drivers. And I've seen people, believe it or not, distracted bike riders who are reading their cell phones as they're riding. And I saw one person who was reading his cell phone, went through a red light, and nearly got hit when somebody opened the door and nearly caused an accident himself. Don't you think that if you asked the bicycle riders to take some responsibility, that you would also have fewer accidents?
Yeah, Marcia, again, I don't know what answer you're looking for. I'm going to give you the truth. I've said it so many times that it's not like a news flash. So first of all, one, cars and trucks, the central part of the problem. We have more to do. Two, remember the controversy over the e-bikes. I said consistently, and I still say it, e-bikes, which are fast, which too often went the wrong way on traffic, which were reckless in too many cases, needed to be addressed. Many folks rose their voices in advocacy and said, why are you picking on the e-bikes? I was picking on the e-bikes because there was a safety problem. So we're going to follow safety in every situation. When we look at e-bikes going forward, when we look at e-scooters, everything's going to be about safety. But yes, we've already long since said and acted on the fact that there will be enforcement if a bicyclist violates the law and endangers everyone or anyone. Of course there will be enforcement. But it's understanding that something motorized is much more dangerous than something not motorized. That's just common sense. Yeah. Coming your way, don't worry, brother.
How's the push on these bike priority districts going to be any different from the ones that you established in 2017? I mean, the map looks pretty much the same. There hasn't been any talk about where they're getting protected bike lanes versus the breakdown also, when we asked for that at Streets Blood, we weren't given that.
All right, well, if there's something you all have asked for that you can give, we'll give it to you. But I think part of this plan today, you can see the, by the way, for those that don't know, the 10 priority cycle districts are areas where we've seen sort of the gray areas there, kind of the next ring out from the innermost core of the city, where we're seeing real growth in cycling, but we need to do more to build out that infrastructure. And it is unfortunately some of those areas where we're seeing fatalities this year. So part of what we're doing today, again, is upping that commitment of protected bike lanes, some of which obviously will be in those areas, and continuing to build out those neighborhood networks. And I think also we are going to be working really closely with PD on some of that enforcement, particularly some of these areas are areas where you're seeing they were formerly more industrial. Now you're starting to see more of an interface of residential and industrial, and you're seeing cyclists and trucks, which don't mix, unfortunately, as we know. So, particularly also, as PD mentioned, they're going to go to the top, what we're seeing now is the top 100 intersections and corridors where we feel cyclists are at risk and do really targeted enforcement. A bunch of those, I think, will be in those areas.
I also have a follow-up for the mayor. Mr. Mayor, we did have a really good year last year when only 10 people died. So why wouldn't there have been maybe building on that success as opposed to waiting until 17 people died?
Obviously, you are too intelligent to ask that question because you know that Vision Zero has been growing every year. Vision Zero for this year was a whole host of things are being added, including the additional speed cameras in the schools. So I've said more times than I can count, it's an ever-growing thing. It's going to be bigger next year, the year after, by definition. This crisis, because it's such a shock, made us feel there were things we had to do even more than we anticipated, and we're doing them.
Mr. Mayor, two questions. Number one, is there any plan in the works to license the motorized vehicle and then have some kind of regulation that they can be responsible for as drivers?
I'll start, and if the deputy mayor or the commissioner want to add anything, feel free. Look, I think we're still waiting on a signature on the.
Governor still has to sign.
Right.
and the
So
council would also have to act.
Right, so there's first, nothing happens until if the governor signs, obviously. And then there is a period of time for the council to act, and we'll work closely with the council. But that's the kind of issue we are going to have to talk about with anything motorized, is what kind of regulation do we need? We have at least half a year from the time it's signed to act on it, so it'll be a very vibrant conversation trying to figure out what's right.
With regard to Bike Safe New York, there are speed cameras at schools. Are there any regulations for bicycles riding through school zones? Particularly when children are going to school or
You have it right, Mr. Mayor. Bicycles are supposed to follow the same speed limit. The default speed limit in most of New York City is 25 miles an hour. In a lot of school zones, that can be lower, and bikes are supposed to be at that speed limit.
Stop signs, everything. Okay, Courtney.
Transit advocates, bicycling advocates have been calling on you to get on a bike and ride the bike lanes or the lack thereof for weeks, if not months now. Why not just do it? Why not just get on a bike?
I have gotten on a bike, and I will certainly.
Do this ride with them.
Yeah,
just experience what cyclists.
I do understand a lot of the challenges, and one day I look forward to doing that. But again, the issue more importantly is to act, and we're acting today. Yeah, who has not gone? Yeah.
Mayor, you referred to Vision Zero as an endless effort.
Yeah.
When you rolled out the plan, it was specifically to eliminate deaths by 2024. Do you no longer think that's a realistic timeline?
Well, if you look at what happened up to 2018, it was pretty remarkable. I mean, 100 fewer deaths, so basically from 300 to 200 was such extraordinary fast progress that it certainly was encouraging that we were in range of hitting that goal. I'm not giving up on the goal. I think we're going to be throwing a lot at it now, and the goal is to get there the first moment we can.
You said last year that if someone parks in a bike lane, they're just stopping, they're just dropping someone off, they shouldn't get a ticket, and it's not so bad. Do you still agree with that point of view?
I think that the goal here obviously is no one ever stop in the bike lane. But I still believe, and I know our officers will always show discretion. I'm using the obvious example, having been a parent myself. If a family's dropping off their kids and it's a very brief stop, there still has to be some discretion. But the real thing that we have to address here is not the person who drops someone off and keeps moving immediately, but the people who actually park in the bike lane and create an ongoing danger. That's the central problem.
Done robust bike programs internationally have kind of supercharged them with bike-specific signaling, which we have a little bit of in the city, but not a lot. I didn't hear you talk about if there'd be bike-specific signaling, and would that not kind of supercharge both the safety and regulating bicycle aspects some of my colleagues asked about?
So I think actually we're very excited about a bill that the City Council has just passed, which is going to enable cyclists. One thing we've started to do all over the city, we are now doing it at thousands of intersections, or what's called leading pedestrian intervals, which is giving pedestrians that walk signal 10, 15 seconds before we let cars start to go forward and turn. The council has just passed a bill that is going to enable bikes, and frankly, many of them do it as sort of a common practice, but to codify that they can go on the leading pedestrian interval. We've actually found, having done some studying of that and working with PD, that is proving a really safe treatment. We are looking potentially at some other places to put in bike-specific signals, but the LPI system actually seems to work very well.
Yeah.
So the legislation and policy section, it says you're going to work with the council and pass legislation to streamline community board notices and presentation requirements. How quickly will those be streamlined? What do you have in mind for that? How much faster will that process be?
I think it's a little premature to say. I think, as a lot of you know, there are certain legal steps that the department has to take in terms of sending notification to community boards when we do bike lanes and other things. And again, I think the mayor put it well. I mean, we have a lot of good. we welcome the input from community boards and local communities. They're on the ground and give us a lot of ideas about how to improve our projects. I think we want to make sure we're not being caught up in steps that are just process that aren't adding value, but something, again, we'll need to work with the council, and I can't give you an exact amount of time we will save.
Consider applying that to city bike street space.
What do you mean by that?
It says community boards for bike lanes, but does that apply to city bikes as well, being new to city bikes?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think our city bike process is pretty streamlined. We generally have a sort of an open house process, and some of you know a portal online where local communities can come and give input. We use our criteria to go out and survey all the block faces and figure out where we can put the stations where there won't be infrastructure or other interferences. So, we present that to the community board, and then we go pretty quickly. So I think there we've done a decent amount of streamlining.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Last week, did you say that? Sorry about that. Last week, did you say that the reason that the city bike expansion is going to take until 2023 is because of the public review process?
Well, I don't think that's quite what I said. I think what I said, I mean, look, remember, we are now turning what we think about the 8th largest bike share system in the world to probably the 2nd largest. We are adding, I think, like 35 square miles of new territory. There has to be some good work done to make sure and again, we're going to be in multiple boroughs, so I don't think the community board process holds us up tremendously, but there is some process there. We want to make sure we site those stations, in a way that's going to work.
Who has not had a question, please? Go ahead.
You mentioned 2018 having been so safe and a drop in fatalities, and then 2019, you described it as a shock. Is there anything at all that you can attribute that tragic increase to at this point? Is there anything that's making cyclists more dangerous?
Right. Let me let Polly speak to if there is any analysis that we think can really be verified. But I just want to speak from the heart. Whatever's causing it, it has to stop. And we have to throw everything we got at it. And look, I mean, again, Vision Zero is not like what you normally see in government, which does not aspire to perfection. We're literally saying zero. And it is amazing how that has motivated an extraordinary amount of action and change. So that's my point running through all this. I'm not trying to think in terms of the symbolism or the different factions or the different interests here. I just want to figure out how we can save more lives, and if that means a lot more enforcement, which is not a popular thing, but it's a necessary thing, we're going to keep doing it. So regardless of what might be causing it, we have to throw everything we've got at it. I don't know if you have anything to offer on the analysis.
Well, I'll offer a little bit if you all have the report. I guess just sort of a couple of contextualizing things if you look at page 5, because I think, we put in there 10 years of cycling fatalities, and the mayor said last year was, an extraordinarily safe year. People still died, and of course, we're trying to reduce those numbers further, but, you can sort of see the numbers over the past 10 years have sort of been somewhere in typically the mid-teens to the mid-20s. What we're seeing for the spike this year, and we mentioned it in the report, the spike is really very heavy in Brooklyn. The numbers in the other boroughs are sort of tracking as they have, in recent years. A lot of them have involved trucks. A lot of them, again, I think, as I'm saying, we're seeing them in some of these areas where cycling is increasing, and cycling is really growing all over the city. It's growing in Brooklyn. Areas where perhaps they were previously industrial, there's a lot of commercial activity. Cyclists and trucks are mixing on the street. So again, solutions for us, heavy focus on Brooklyn, heavy focus on protected infrastructure, heavy focus on working on truck safety, on enforcement, and truck education.
So, relating to trucks, I'm not insinuating that the municipal fleet is involved in cars, but is there any talks about shrinking the size of the trucks in the city's municipal fleet that could maybe make street changes easier, because you don't have to have big fire trucks or big garbage trucks trying to navigate turns or things like that?
So I will just say on the city's municipal fleet, we have done a lot of work, and I know I mentioned the Vision Zero Task Force, our partners at DCAS and other agencies, to put on side guards, to do safety training for all the drivers. We now have Ken Seaver systems that are actually tracking the driver of all municipal drivers and telling them when they're speeding or braking excessively. So I want to compliment DCAS and the city family. We have done a lot to try and increase the safety of our own fleet. I know the mayor, I mean, it is a challenge. You know, on the one hand here, we're pledging we're going to do a lot more work. That means more resurfacing, more sanitation, sort of all the things that necessitate trucks. We have been in a discussion, again, particularly with sanitation and FDNY about other places where we can use smaller vehicles. I can't say we've solved that one totally yet, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner?
Yeah. We'll come back.
What role has the presence of Uber and Lyft and the other car-hailing services impacted the numbers? A factor in this?
I mean, it's interesting. I have to say, when you look at the statistics in recent years, we really haven't seen. In fact, you know, even though taxis and Ubers and Lyfts log a lot of miles, they actually, sort of statistically speaking, are not particularly dangerous drivers. And again, I would compliment the Vision Zero Task Force. We've done a lot of work also with the for-hire vehicle sector, and Families for Safe Streets has been very involved in that, you know, working with them to show them videos and improve their driving. So they aren't a disproportionate factor. Now, just in general, obviously, more vehicles on the streets means more collisions, and I think, as the mayor mentioned, you know, some of the things that are going to happen in the next couple of years, more alternatives for people, and improved mass transit system, city bike, things like that can help encourage people, obviously, to get out of cars.
Yeah, and I want to give the TLC credit. They've been a crucial part of Vision Zero from the beginning, and encouraging that kind of safety approach that Polly was talking about. But also, we talked about this a few weeks back. We made the announcement about the cap on for-hire vehicles and the reductions on the cruising times in Manhattan. Certainly, for-hire vehicles have contributed a lot to overall congestion in the city. So, you know, in that competition for space, they are part of the problem, clearly. And that's been one of the areas of biggest increase. I think these new rules are going to help. But I think, you know, in the end, the biggest change will be if more and more people move to mass transit, including biking. But I do want to differentiate. Obviously, Polly knows the specific facts on crashes and for-hire vehicles, but there's the other piece of the equation. Have they intensified the competition for space on the streets? Unquestionably. And that's hopefully something the CAP will address. Anyone who's not gone yet? Yes. Coming to you. Hold on.
How do you explain the chasm between you and Councilmember Rodriguez? I mean, he seems to support what you guys have rolled out today, but he's calling for 100 miles of protected bike lanes per year, and you're going with 30. How do you? Is it just not feasible in your mind, 100 miles?
Look, I think there's the reason he is here. When someone comes to join in an announcement, it's because they believe it is an important step. And I was a legislator, and the job of legislators is to aim high, and then folks who are running the place have to figure out what we actually think can get done and try and be real about it. So I think there's a natural tension there. But we want to work with them to see what more we can do. I think that's the simple answer. Yeah.
I have a question for the Commissioner.
Yeah, well, let's try and do about 5, 6 more before we go to other topics.
Hi, you mentioned the spike in Brooklyn, but if I look at the map, there's a lot of areas in Brooklyn that are not going to be studied that are transit deserts, like Green Park, NYC. How come you're not studying those areas? Because it's really important.
Did you say why we're not studying? I mean, we do work all over the city, in every community board, in every neighborhood. The gray zones are areas that we had identified a couple of years ago as places where we were particularly seeing both a big rise in cycling and an urgent need for more infrastructure. But I think you can see from this map, we are looking to put bike infrastructure in every part of the city. And I actually I wanted to jump back on the issue you were just saying, Mr. Mayor, about sort of the chairman's sort of challenge to us to go to 100 miles and what we're announcing today. And as you said, sort of being the person who has the agency who's tasked in actually delivering it. I mean, we want to make sure when we build out this network that it is safe, that it is high quality, that it's going to work in every neighborhood. And just to contextualize, you know, the previous administration did a terrific job in improving cycling in the city. They were averaging, as far as we can tell, about 5 miles of protected bike lanes a year. We're proposing to do 6 times that amount. So it may not sound like a big number, it's a big number, and I think it is way more than any other U.S. city is trying to do right now. As the mayor said, he's always challenging us to do more, but this is a big step forward for us, and you know, we're going to do everything we can to achieve this goal, and if we can go further, we will.
Okay, who has not had a shot? Anyone has not had a shot yet? Yes?
Earlier, when you were talking about pedestrians injured by bicyclists, if you said it, I'm sorry because I missed it. What are the numbers as far as injuries and fatalities?
I don't have that, but maybe Polly does.
I'm dropping everything. All right, I have the figures for this year, and we have our press team who can grab them. So far, year to date, as we've heard today, tragically 17 cyclists, 59 pedestrians.
He's asking pedestrian-cyclist interactions, I think.
Oh.
Is that right?
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. How many pedestrians have been? I don't have the injury numbers. I will say, we can probably get you those, although there is a lag in our injury data.
Let's get
The
If you have 2018, please give those.
Yeah, all right, I'll see if we can.
If you have it, let's say it. If not, we'll come back.
I don't have it on me. I think we
will
can
come
probably
back to you
find something
today.
for you.
Okay, anyone who's not gone on this topic? Yes.
Can you talk about what's happening between Boulevard and...
Louder, please, I'm sorry.
Sorry, can you talk about what's happening between Boulevard and how this plays into this plan? Would you commit to finishing that?
Yeah, no, I already have committed to it. We are going to finish it. We're working on that now, but we're going to finish it. Okay, anyone who's not gone yet, just somebody's trying, in the interest of fairness, anyone who's not gone. Okay, we're coming back around, go ahead.
I wonder if you'll offer any special instructions to the NYPD, see lots of pictures of these vehicles and bike lanes, and then just wondering if, when was the last time you cycled on a city street, Mr. Mayor, versus in your park?
I just can't give you the chapter and verse on when I did each thing in my cycling life, but I can say on the instructions to the NYPD, absolutely, NYPD vehicles are not supposed to block bike lanes unless they're in the middle of providing an emergency service.
I would say exactly that was the answer, and that's correct. And we discourage our officers, and part of our review and daily meeting with our boroughs and officers, we share that message to keep out of our bus lanes, our bike lanes, because again, we want to provide safety for our bicyclists out there.
Further than discouraging, will you do any enforcement of your own officers?
What happened is that if we do find officers that are parking vehicles and it's not an emergency situation, we can take disciplinary action against those particular officers. But again, we certainly discourage them. We don't want them to park there anywhere in the vicinity of those bike lanes.
Yeah.
You said that the crisis this year when it comes to bicycle fatalities were a shock, but you talk to a lot of cyclists, you look at some of the data, and the writing seems to have been on the wall. I know severe injuries are down under Vision Zero, but cyclist injuries last year hit 4,700. They were at 4,000 the first year that Vision Zero was launched. So do you think your success when it comes to reducing fatalities has blinded you from the larger issue?
No, I think the job one is saving lives. We were saving lives very consistently, and I believe we will be able to continue that progress. And the number of measures we put in is extraordinary. Look, we may have a disagreement. I think what is the most important thing is action. And Vision Zero didn't exist before this administration. I don't remember people saying, you know, where is Vision Zero? We decided it was something to do because we thought it was needed no matter how audacious. We've built it out year after year. It is consistently performed. And now we're going to go a lot farther. And I think that's what matters, real action for real people, and that's been consistent. It's just going to keep growing. So I don't feel there's been anything but a constant focus on it. Okay, last call, a few more.
Following up on Queens Boulevard, what was the reason for the delay of the section?
I'm not in the nuances of that, but it will move forward. Do you have anything to add? No.
It was reported that your office specifically asked DOT to take down signs.
Again, it's going to be done.
The 30 miles for 2019, have they been identified yet? Because it seems like on the map, in the book, in the report, it says there's a little tiny asterisk or something there that says we'll work with communities to identify.
Right, so to be clear, the 30 miles are going to start in 2020, because we're announcing this today. Our goal this year is to get over 20, and you all, I'm sure, will follow how far we get. So you can see on that map there, the yellow lines are what we're envisioning to do by the end of 2021.
You don't have specific streets, right?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, actually, it's in the book, too. In a lot of cases, there are specific streets, yeah.
That sounds like more of a yes than a no.
Yeah,
Yes, there are specific streets.
they are specific
Marcia.
streets, yes.
There's this, and this is also for Polly, there is this plan that you want to look as a pilot to keep green lights going so that people can drive faster and bicyclists will avoid the red lights.
So people can drive slower.
That was my point. So you're going to, so in those places, you would drive 15 miles an hour. So does that mean that you're going to lower the speed limit in New York City to 15 from 25, or just in specific spots? Like, how would that work?
Right, we're not going to lower the speed limit. And this is a pilot we're going to try. It's something that we've seen they're experimenting with in Europe. You know, and let's be honest, there are many parts of New York City and many parts of the day where you would be happy to be going 15 miles an hour. So this is not something we're going to, you know, roll out on a big highway. But on streets where we're seeing the predominance of the traffic is cycling, one of the challenges, we're seeing it this year in cycling, when you're on a bike and you're getting momentum, it's very hard to keep stopping each time you hit a red light. It slows your trip down. So we're gonna experiment with this. Can we create signal timing that will keep the cars moving, but will also let the cyclists go at a natural speed and hopefully not hit so many red lights?
Be the typical places that you think would be a place to try the pilot program that would work, where there's a lot of bicycle people and there's, you know, a lot of red lights that slow them down.
I think I'm not going to, I'll maybe grab you after this. I don't know that I want to mention a street here today because I don't want to surprise anybody, but I think you can think of, again, some perhaps sort of smaller corridors that have become really busy cycling corridors where, again, cars aren't getting up to big speeds where this may work.
Last call, yep. Go ahead, man.
This is a very tough question for me. You have behind you about 15 individuals. You have NYPD, you have organizations representing groups that have had some serious things happen to themselves or their families. Last night on my radio show, I had two people who were sitting behind you, Deborah and Arnold McCarthy. If I get it wrong, forgive me. They lost their child 10 years ago, 22 years old, their only child. He was hit by an MTA bus who was making a turn, and he was in the crosswalk, had the right of way. Can anything be done regarding regulations for buses and trucks, first for city and state regulated transportation vehicles, where when they're making a turn and the wheel is turned, that a noise similar to when they back up can be heard, but different, so a pedestrian will know. It can be blind people or people who are not looking behind them when they're crossing.
I think that's a really interesting idea and one that should be explored for sure right away. It's anything that adds to safety, I'm interested in. I think in the immediate term, what we've made clear to anyone who drives is you have to yield to pedestrians. And I think it's really obvious that for a long time in this city and this country, that was not the culture. That was not the reality. Even though the law said it, people ignored it all the time and there was no enforcement. When we put Vision Zero in, NYPD got very energetically involved in enforcing on failure to yield for everyone. And that's made a difference. So speeding, failure to yield, parking in bike lanes, these are all things where the more enforcement there is, the more it will change behavior and protect lives.
Mayor, some people here may know that you're running for president. That being said, do you ever discuss some of the programs in New York City, like this bike program, bicycles, for that matter, setting up bike lanes, et cetera, in other cities?
Yeah, all the time. I've been talking about Vision Zero in other parts of the country because I think it should be a national vision. There is no reason Vision Zero could not be made national policy to slow people down, to make sure there's a lot more enforcement, to have things like speed cameras around schools. I mean, these are all things that will protect lives, particularly protect the lives of kids and seniors. And I think that's something that people could agree on all over this country. Okay, last call, we're going to go to other topics. Other topics, Andrew.
Mayor, the president tweeted about you today about the action taken against police officers, the water being thrown on them. He called it a disgrace, and he said it's time for you to stand up and protect them. Bill de Blasio should act immediately.
First of all, the moment that I heard about that incident, I condemned it, and I made very clear, and I want to make it clear here. Anybody who interferes with the work of a police officer is going to be charged and is going to suffer the consequences. It's illegal, it's inappropriate, it's not acceptable. So you don't have, if a police officer puts you under arrest, you need to go along with that. If a police officer is trying to do their job, you're not supposed to interfere with it. You can't throw things at a police officer. I said that all on Monday night, I'm saying it again. Clear as a bell. There will be consequences. Don't even think about it. Now, to the president knows nothing about New York City at this point. This is a guy who wanted to go back to stop and frisk, which was a horrible failure and was undermining the whole relationship between police and community. This is a guy who literally does not even understand the place he came from. And he didn't live the life of everyday New Yorkers. He was a child of a millionaire. He didn't know what life was like in the streets of New York. So here's the bottom line. For 5 years, we have been focusing on protecting our officers through things that actually make them safer. 2,000 more officers on patrol, better training, better technology, better equipment, better protective gear, but also better relationship with the community. I've talked to a lot of officers, and they agree that if the community's backing them up, if the community has a personal relationship with their officers, it's very important to the safety of the officers. You want as many people in the community on the side of the officers as possible, and just have those few bad guys isolated. So that's what neighborhood policing is all about. And we've seen many, many ways where it's working. But we're going to keep deepening that relationship. But at the same time, if anyone violates that relationship and interferes with a police officer, there'll be consequences. Yeah.
Moving to Mueller testimony, it seems like the only time the former special counsel really got animated a couple of points is when he tried to hammer home the fact that, hey, Russia is still interfering with our elections, do something. So I guess the question is, what are you doing here in New York?
Here, look, the good news for the city of New York is we have a very strong cyber command with very experienced officials running it, working under Deputy Mayor Anglin, and I think the New York City government in general is well protected. The Board of Elections, I wish it was part of New York City government. It is not, as you know, but we at least have been offering support and being in a position to show them ways that they can protect themselves, and I think there's been some receptivity. I'm worried. I'm worried about whether our elections are safe everywhere. You know, New York may be in better shape than some places, but I'm worried about all of it. And I think when a guy like Mueller, who served his country for decades and is someone who's so deeply respected, says, we're not only not out of the woods, we're in direct danger of foreign interference that will change the course of our democracy, that has to be taken very seriously. And I think we're all shocked that the very same day the Senate turned down the bills that would have expanded election protection. So I think this is a very important moment, not so much for some of the reasons that sort of are the obsessive debate about impeachment. I think even more so because Mueller is reminding people we're right in the crosshairs of Russian interference right now. Yeah.
Do you feel that somebody has a right to get literally an inch from a police officer's face and curse them out?
No, of course not.
Is the appropriate and legal response for that officer? What are the officer's rights?
Officers have the right to use their training and their discretion to determine how to handle a situation. If they're being interfered with, they have every right to arrest someone.
What if they're not being interfered with? Somebody's just...
If someone's that close to your face, you're being interfered with.
Mr. Mayor, we know that the crime stat numbers show that crimes are down overall, but there have been a number, maybe more than a dozen, of stray bullet incidents in the city in the last few weeks. What is the NYPD doing to combat this? And what do you say to the mothers and the fathers of these victims who've had to endure these heartrending incidents?
It's heartbreaking. I'm a father. I've seen these reports, and it's heartbreaking. And it's not the way we're going to live. We are going to do better. Look, Marcia, one thing we can say, over now almost 25 years, the city's gotten safer, and specifically in the last 5-6 years, we've seen very constant improvement, very constant proof that we're getting safer. Now, that's not enough until everyone's safe. What we know is that a big part of our problem is coming from a small number of gang and crew members. The best solution is to take down those gangs and crews and to have successful prosecutions, including successful gun prosecutions. That's the area where I think the PD can and will do more, and we need our prosecutors to do more. But I am heartened by the fact that there's only so many of these bad guys in circulation. Commissioner Bratton, when he first was in, made clear to the people in New York City, it's several thousand people, only several thousand in a city of 8.6 million, who are causing most of the real violence. Slowly but surely, we're getting more and more of them off the streets, but we got to complete that mission.
A chance to speak to or visit any of the parents of the victims or the victims themselves?
Not in these last weeks. At various times along the way I have, but I don't need to understand their pain. Their pain is very real. I take it seriously. I look at every report in the morning, Marcia. I get the full rundown from the NYPD of what happened overnight. And whenever I see something involving a young person, my first reaction is as a parent. And that means we've got more to do. And where we see any focal point of a problem, we're going to send in more NYPD officers. That's the one thing I want everyone to understand. If there's a place where there's an uptick in violence, we're sending more officers in. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, have you finished reading the Mueller report yet?
I've read the Mueller report, yes. Fascinating read.
You were in Washington, D.C. 2 days ago, yesterday, 2 days ago. 2 days ago.
You were right the first time. Always go with your first guess.
And you were not alongside Kirsten Gillibrand and a number of other police unions as they were championing the Senate's passage of the Victim Compensation Act. It's our understanding that you wanted to be there, but were told no. Why do you think the senator's office told you no?
You have to ask the senator. It makes no sense to me. My team made very clear that I wanted to go there to honor our first responders and to show appreciation for the members of the Congress for getting this done, and explicitly said not asking for a speaking role, just want to be there in support and solidarity. So I don't know how that request gets turned down. Yes?
I think that was petty of Gillibrand to turn it down.
I'm only going to say I can't imagine why anyone would do such a thing on a moment that should be a unifying moment. Particularly, look, I've been around a lot of politicians. When a politician says, I'm not asking to speak, that's a special moment right there. So I find it unbelievable.
So the city is suing American Airlines over violating the paid sick leave law, allegedly. Can you talk a little bit about that?
No, because I heard about it literally walking in the door. So the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection can tell you all about it, but it just broke literally coming in the door. Yeah.
In addition to the Mueller report, have you read the MTA transformation report?
No, not the whole report. I've read a summary. I haven't read the whole thing.
Thoughts on it having passed yesterday?
I believe it is consistent with the 10-point plan that I put out with the governor originally. So I'm comfortable that it was the right direction. My central concern is that we get a stronger, clearer direction from the MTA and more accountability. So I do believe it's directionally correct.
The Attorney General's office is now opened an inquiry into Con Ed and exactly specifically what happened with the blackout situation. Can you weigh in? We haven't heard you yet.
Oh, I've spoken to this many times. I'll speak to it again. First of all, I agree and appreciate that the Attorney General has done that. I think it's necessary. I think the whole state government, any state entity that has the power over Con Ed, over utilities, should use that power right now. We are also going to be doing an investigation at the city level and demanding answers from Con Ed. I tell you, from Saturday night, so now it's Thursday, so 12 days, I've spoken to the president of Con Ed numerous times. He's never had trouble finding me when he wanted to tell me something. He's texted me, he's called me, and I only have said to him, give me an answer. Tell me why the first incident happened Saturday and how you're going to ensure it won't happen again. Tell me how the second incident happened this last weekend on Sunday. Tell me how it's not going to happen again. Suddenly my phone's not ringing. So, and I've said to him, and I'll say it to you, I say that we in the public sector, we don't get the option to just not have an answer for something. You know, we have to come up with a meaningful answer. So I'm very disappointed in Con Ed, and I think they deserve these investigations and a lot of oversight because, you know, it's just really basic. You can't say we've had two very, very serious problems and we know nothing about how to stop them. We're getting no assurances they won't happen again. That's unacceptable. Yeah.
Can you guys talk about the Con Ed and infrastructure in general? We saw a lot of flooding in the streets and also on the subways. Can you talk about
The city is putting more money into infrastructure than ever in our history by a lot. We are running huge capital budgets right now.